Look like some new photos has surfaced of the Indiana Fever fan being removed from last night's playoff game.
The Indiana Fever's playoff clash with the Atlanta Dream should have been remembered for intensity on the court, but instead, it became overshadowed by chaos in the stands. At the center of the storm was Allisha Gray, a veteran guard whose frustration boiled over after a rough night of shooting. What followed was a shocking moment. A Fever fan and his wife were escorted out of the arena, accused of crossing the line.
And Allisha Gray snapped off at a fan last night, and they got led out by security.
Social media immediately exploded, branding the couple as villains, and even throwing out ugly accusations that could ruin reputations. But then came the twist. Eyewitnesses close to the scene began dropping the truth, revealing that what Gray claimed simply didn't match reality. The fan hadn't shouted anything hateful, just a harmless heckle that exposed Gray's thin skin. What started as a player versus fan confrontation quickly spiraled into a bigger story that left the WNBA scrambling.
This photo is leaked out of the internet. So this is the fan right here, I'm guessing, being removed from the stadium. And as y'all can see, Buddy got on the wristband. And he definitely paid to be down there. It stated, players should not have to go through this. Go through what? Because it never came out what he said.
The stage was set for a high-stakes playoff battle between the Indiana Fever and the Atlanta Dream. Tension filled the building as fans packed the seats, hungry for a game that could decide the series. Every dribble echoed louder, every whistle felt sharper, and the crowd was alive with energy. This was playoff basketball at its finest until the night took an unexpected turn. Allisha Gray, a player with years of WNBA experience, found herself struggling from the opening minutes. Shots that normally fell weren't dropping. Possessions ended with frustration instead of points. Fans noticed, and while most brushed it off as part of the game, Gray's body language grew worse with each missed shot. She flopped to the floor after light contact, gestured wildly at referees, and looked increasingly disconnected from her team's focus. Instead of rallying, she spiraled. Then came the boiling point, sitting courtside. A man wearing a black cap leaned forward and shouted encouragement to Fever forward Lexi Hull as she guarded Gray. His words were simple. "You're good. Lex, she's not even trying anymore." It was the kind of standard heckling you hear in every arena every night. But in Gray's eyes, it was a personal attack.
There's Gray, there's Lexi Hull, there's the wife, and here's the guy in the black cap. They're the fans in question, but now it's coming out that she got into it with all the fans sitting there because she was having a shitty night, like 4 of 16, and she was flopping around like a catfish out there. But she got angry because she got called out. Well, unfortunately for her, she has now been exposed. She's been fully exposed, and all of this is on her.
She snapped, spinning toward the fans and firing back with heated words that stunned those sitting nearby. Her anger was so visible that it seemed to distract from the ongoing play on the court. Security quickly moved in. Without much explanation, the fan and his wife were escorted from their seats. Confusion rippled through the arena. People sitting around them whispered, asking what could have possibly been said to deserve ejection.
She instigated it. The fans didn't say shit to her that was out of line at all. So let's roll it. You see her. Look at her throwing her hands up, blah, blah, blah. And talking to the fan. What are you doing? There was plays going on in the background. She just forgot about her team. I mean, they are so thin-skinned in this league. It is unbelievable.
From the outside looking in, it seemed like a routine protocol decision. But to those who witnessed the exchange, it was jarring. The fans hadn't crossed a line. They hadn't cursed, threatened, or disrupted play. They had simply called out what was obvious on the floor. Gray wasn't locked in. The optics of the removal were powerful. Cameras captured the couple walking out with bewildered expressions, while Gray continued jawing from the court. Commentators and fans online were quick to pounce. To many, it looked like a player using her influence to silence criticism rather than focus on the game.
It's funny because it's already been confirmed. He was saying typical heckling stuff. He called her flopper. The fans returned to their seats shortly after. By the way, do your research instead of constantly spreading misinformation.
What should have been remembered as a playoff grind was instead defined by a meltdown that exposed raw nerves. In that moment, the dynamic shifted. The spotlight moved off the Fever's fight for survival and onto a narrative about thin-skinned players, frustrated stars, and fans caught in the crossfire. What nobody realized yet was that this wasn't just a single outburst. It was the beginning of a story that would unravel in real time, one that would pull in social media, ignite heated debates, and force the WNBA to confront uncomfortable truths about its culture and its image. And as the fan walked out of the building, unaware of the storm brewing online, the seeds of controversy had already been planted.
This is getting ridiculous. This person said the Indiana Fever shut the Atlanta Dream down. Allisha Gray crying like a newborn infant baby over a fan. Come on, this is a playoff game. We are here to fight in your head, and clearly it worked. This was do or die for us. And judging by your performance, mission accomplished.
The moment security walked that couple out of the arena, the internet did what it always does. It took over the story. Clips of Allisha Gray's heated exchange spread across social media within minutes, each one accompanied by captions, commentary, and speculation. What started as a minor courtside incident instantly turned into a trending topic. But instead of focusing on the playoff matchup, the online conversation quickly twisted into something much darker. Certain accounts, particularly those aligned with activist corners of the WNBA fanbase, painted the evicted couple as aggressors. Without evidence, accusations surfaced that the comments directed at Gray were racially charged. Hashtags calling the Fever fanbase toxic and racist gained traction. Strangers who weren't in the arena acted like eyewitnesses, demanding punishment for the man in the black cap. Some even went as far as to suggest that he should lose his job for what they assumed he had said. It was a classic internet pylon. One moment of tension on the court spiraled into an online witch hunt. The truth didn't matter. The narrative had already been set. In this digital age, perception spreads faster than reality. A short clip of Gray pointing at the fans, looking visibly furious, was enough for thousands of people to decide that the fans were guilty before a single eyewitness account emerged. Meanwhile, the couple at the center of it all sat stunned. They hadn't shouted anything hateful. The husband's words were a simple jab at Gray's lack of effort, something players hear every night in arenas around the world. Yet, as Twitter threads grew longer and comment sections exploded, they suddenly found themselves painted as villains in a story that was never theirs to begin with. The wife, who had said nothing at all, was dragged into the firestorm simply by association. The irony was sharp. The WNBA has long struggled to grow its audience, and many argue that what it needs most is genuine sports fans filling arenas and bringing energy. Yet, here was a paying couple spending their night cheering for their team, only to be publicly labeled and humiliated because a player couldn't handle light criticism. Instead of celebrating playoff intensity, the league's narrative was being hijacked by claims of racism and toxicity. What made matters worse was the silence from official channels. Neither the Fever nor the WNBA stepped in immediately to clarify the situation. That vacuum allowed social media speculation to fester unchecked. For hours, the dominant storyline wasn't the Fever fighting for their playoff lives, but whether a fan base had crossed an unforgivable line. But as quickly as the mob formed, cracks began to show. Eyewitnesses who were seated near the couple started chiming in, offering a very different account of what happened. They insisted nothing inappropriate was said. Screenshots of their testimonies began circulating, slowly shifting the conversation. The stage was set for a major reversal, one that would leave Gray exposed and the fans vindicated. As the online storm raged, something unexpected began to happen. Real people who had actually been there, fans seated within earshot of the incident, started speaking up. Their words painted a completely different picture than the one circulating on social media. And suddenly, the narrative that had branded the couple as villains began to crumble. One witness explained it plainly. The man in the black cap never said anything offensive. His comment, directed toward Lexi Hull as she defended Gray, was simple encouragement. "You're good, Lex. She's not even trying anymore." That was it. No slurs, no aggression, just a blunt observation about Gray's lack of effort. In other words, the kind of heckling athletes face every single night. For Gray to explode over such a harmless line revealed not fan misconduct, but a player unable to handle the pressure of the moment. More voices echoed this version of events. Another fan seated close by confirmed that nothing inappropriate was said and that Gray was the one who escalated. According to them, she turned away from the court in the middle of play to confront the couple, gesturing and hurling heated words while her teammates scrambled on defense. One even noted how Gray laid on the floor after a missed call, leaving her team playing for, which directly resulted in a score for the Dream. To many in the arena, it looked like she had mentally checked out. Letting frustration dictate her focus, these testimonies hit social media with force. Screenshots of fan accounts spread quickly, challenging the idea that the couple had done anything wrong. Instead, they painted Gray as the instigator, someone who had lost her composure and dragged innocent fans into her spiral. Suddenly, the very people who had rushed to condemn the couple were forced to reconcile with these first-hand accounts. The turning point came when another detail surfaced. Security had actually allowed the couple back into the arena. Not only that, but they apologized to them, explaining that the removal was protocol to de-escalate the situation and give Gray time to calm down. If the fans had truly crossed the line, there would have been no return, no apology, and no correction. The fact that security reversed the decision confirmed what witnesses were already saying. The fans were never the problem. What started as a supposed case of a toxic fan base had flipped completely. Now, the spotlight was on Gray, and not in a flattering way. Eyewitnesses made it clear she had overreacted to a routine heckle, abandoned professionalism in the heat of a playoff battle, and nearly ruined the reputation of innocent people in the process. And as these accounts spread, the question grew louder. If players can't handle the most basic criticism without melting down, what does that say about the league itself? At the heart of this entire controversy was a truth too glaring to ignore. Allisha Gray was having a miserable night on the court. Her stat line told the story before the fans ever did. Shot after shot clanged off the rim. Drives to the basket ended in awkward misses. At one point, she was just 4 for 16 from the field. A brutal number for a player expected to be a key weapon in a playoff game. Every miss deepened her frustration, and every possession seemed to unravel her composure even further. Fans who watched closely noticed how her frustration wasn't just internal, it spilled into her body language. Gray flailed on the floor after minimal contact, exaggerated fouls that went unnoticed by referees, and openly gestured in disbelief whenever calls didn't go her way. Her teammates tried to regroup and focus, but her visible anger created a distraction. Instead of playing through adversity, she allowed it to consume her. This is where the moment with the fan became so critical. When the man shouted, "You're good, Lex. She's not even trying anymore." It wasn't just an insult. To Gray, it was a spotlight on the very thing she was trying to hide: her poor effort and lack of focus. In that instant, the frustration of her entire performance boiled over. She wasn't just responding to a fan, she was lashing out at the reality of her own struggles. The contrast was stark. On one side of the court, Natasha Howard and other Dream players were capitalizing on every lapse, turning Gray's disengagement into easy points. On the other, Fever fans were watching a player unravel in real time. Rather than locking in defensively or finding another way to contribute, Gray let her emotions dictate the game. It was less about one comment and more about an athlete, cracking under the weight of a playoff spotlight. Professional athletes are expected to thrive in hostile environments. Heckling is part of the game. LeBron James has endured entire arenas chanting against him. Stephen Curry has been taunted relentlessly during playoff runs. Even in the WNBA, stars like Diana Taurasi and Sylvia Fowles have taken heckles on the chin and responded by dominating the game. What separated Gray in this moment was her inability to rise above it. She didn't silence critics with her play, she validated them with her reaction. And here lies the irony. By losing her composure, Gray didn't just hurt her team's momentum. She opened herself up to the very ridicule she was desperate to avoid. The memes, the jokes, the criticism that flooded in afterward weren't just about her stat line, they were about her thin skin. She became the face of a problem bigger than one game. A league struggling with stars who can't seem to balance competitive fire with professionalism. But the drama didn't end there. What came next only deepened the controversy. as the role of security in this unfolding saga revealed another layer that no one saw coming. When the confrontation between Allisha Gray and the Fever fan reached its boiling point, security's response was immediate. Within seconds of Gray's heated exchange, ushers and guards approached the couple in the black cap and calmly escorted them out of their seats. To those watching nearby, it seemed like the typical outcome of a fan crossing the line. After all, security doesn't remove people for nothing, right? But as details emerged, this decision proved to be far more complicated and far more damaging for Gray. According to multiple eyewitnesses, security didn't act because the fan said something unacceptable. Instead, they acted to protect the player. The explanation was almost shocking in its honesty. Removing the fans was done to give Gray time to calm down. In other words, the couple hadn't broken the rules. They were simply caught in the crossfire of a player's emotional meltdown. This revelation flipped the script. Fans in the arena began asking the obvious question: why should paying customers be punished for a player's inability to keep composure? People attend playoff games precisely because they want to be part of the atmosphere, cheering, heckling, and raising the stakes for both sides. By treating normal fan behavior as a threat to Gray's comfort, the incident suggested that the league's priorities were skewed. What made it even more surreal was what happened next. After being let out, the couple was eventually brought back into the arena. Not only that, but security apologized to them. That apology was the nail in the coffin for the original narrative. If the fans had crossed any serious line, there would have been no return, no apology, and no public acknowledgement. The fact that security corrected their own decision revealed that the true issue wasn't fan misconduct, it was Gray's reaction. This detail carried major consequences. By apologizing, security indirectly admitted that the player had been coddled. They essentially confirmed that removing the fans wasn't about enforcing rules, but about pacifying an athlete who lost control. For the broader fan base, this was a slap in the face. If fans could be removed for no real violation, what message did that send to anyone spending hard-earned money on tickets? That their presence was conditional, and their voices only welcome if they stayed silent. In the aftermath, Gray looked worse than ever. The league's attempt to protect her backfired, fueling criticism that WNBA players are thin-skinned and overly shielded from accountability. Instead of calming things down, the security intervention magnified the drama. Fans online immediately latched on to the apology as proof that the couple had been unfairly targeted, and memes portraying Gray as fragile spread like wildfire. The incident wasn't just about a single tantrum anymore. It was now about the optics of a league willing to punish its fans to defend a player's ego. And once the fans returned to their seats, emboldened by vindication, the conversation shifted again, this time toward the power of the fan base itself to fight back against the narrative. Once the truth about what really happened began to leak out, that the couple had been removed only to pacify Allisha Gray, and that security had later apologized and returned them to their seats, the tide turned sharply. The same social media platforms that had initially roasted the Fever fan base for alleged racism were suddenly overflowing, with posts mocking Gray instead. What was once a narrative of toxic fans became a story of a player who couldn't handle the heat of a playoff game. Indiana. Fever supporters were quick to seize the moment. Clips of Gray flopping around on the floor, hands thrown in the air, and visibly sulking began circulating with captions like, "Mission accomplished and she's already given up," memes spread like wildfire, portraying her as overly dramatic and mentally weak. One viral post described her behavior as crying like a newborn in the middle of a playoff fight, perfectly capturing the sentiment of fans who felt she had embarrassed herself and the league. This backlash wasn't limited to Fever fans either. Neutral viewers and even rival supporters joined in. Seeing the absurdity of a professional athlete unraveling over such a harmless comment, what should have been remembered as a tight playoff series between two determined teams was now a comedy show online, with Gray cast as the unwilling main character. Even worse, her meltdown overshadowed the contributions of her teammates who were still fighting to keep the dream competitive. But the roasting wasn't just about Gray's performance that night. Fans began connecting her actions to a larger pattern they've observed in the WNBA. Players lashing out at criticism instead of owning it. Posts highlighted how NBA stars have endured far worse heckling without demanding fan ejections. using Gray's Tantra as Exhibit A for why the league struggles to connect with traditional sports audiences. The phrase thin-skinned appeared over and over again in threads and videos. Dissecting the incident, the couple themselves became something of folk heroes. Their side of the story, that they were just cheering for Lexi Hall and pointing out Gray's lack of effort, resonated with thousands of people who saw themselves in the same position. They were regular fans who paid for seats, supported their team, and suddenly found themselves accused of racism and villainized online, only to be vindicated when the truth emerged. Their calm reactions, contrasted with Gray's fiery outburst, made them the sympathetic figures in a saga that should never have involved them in the first place. By the end of the night, the internet consensus was clear. Allisha Gray wasn't the victim. She was the instigator who had turned a normal heckle into a league-wide controversy. And while fans were enjoying their moment of vindication, a darker undertone remained. What if things had gone differently? What if those false accusations had stuck, and that couple's reputation had been destroyed forever? That looming question is what made the next chapter of this story even more unsettling. For the couple at the center of the storm, the night could have ended far worse than an awkward walk to the concourse. Had eyewitnesses not stepped forward and had security not reversed its decision, they could have been permanently branded as villains. Social media doesn't wait for evidence, it thrives on outrage. And in this case, outrage nearly destroyed two ordinary fans who simply came to watch a playoff game. One moment, you're sitting courtside cheering for your team. The next, you're being marched out of the arena. Accused of racism by strangers online and targeted by hashtags demanding your job. In today's world, those accusations stick fast. Even if proven false later, the damage is often irreversible. A single clip of Gray pointing angrily toward them was enough for thousands of people who weren't even in the building to assume guilt. This is the dangerous power of false narratives in the digital era. One player's inability to control her emotions set off a chain reaction that could have ruined real lives. Employers, neighbors, and communities rarely look beyond the surface of a viral controversy. Being labeled racist, even unjustly, can shut doors permanently. That's the chilling part. Innocent fans almost paid a heavy price simply because Gray couldn't handle routine criticism. The hypocrisy didn't go unnoticed either. For years, the WNBA has insisted it wants to grow its fan base to attract the same passionate crowds that fuel NBA arenas. Yet here was a case where two paying fans were treated like disposable props. Instead of protecting their right to enjoy the game, the league, intentionally or not, allowed them to be scapegoated to protect a player's fragile ego. The message it sent was clear. The comfort of players outweighs the dignity of fans, and that set off alarms for many. If this couple could be falsely accused and nearly ruined, what's stopping the next fan from suffering the same fate? What about kids in the stands, or families who come to games to support their team? Should they all sit silently in fear of being misinterpreted by a frustrated athlete? This is where the real fallout lies. The controversy wasn't just about Allisha Gray losing her cool. It was about the precedent set when leagues, teams, and social media mobs rally to shield players from accountability while hanging fans out to dry. It was about how quickly innocent people can be demonized in the public square, and how fragile reputations become when truth no longer matters. The couple was lucky. The eyewitnesses saved them, security admitted its mistake, and fans online flipped the narrative. But the scars of what almost happened remain. The WNBA has to face an uncomfortable truth. If it continues down this path, it risks alienating the very supporters it desperately needs. And that brings us to the bigger picture. The league's image problem, now laid bare for everyone to see. By the time the dust settled, one thing was undeniable. The Allisha Gray incident was more than just a courtside spat. It was a spotlight on deeper issues the WNBA has struggled with for years. Professionalism, fan engagement, and the league's image in the broader sports world. What should have been remembered as a playoff fight turned into another embarrassing headline that reinforced the perception that the league doesn't know how to handle criticism, both on and off the court. For starters, the thin skin displayed in this situation highlighted a growing disconnect between players and the paying public. Fans attend games because they want to be part of the energy to cheer, boo, heckle, and live the highs and lows of competition. That interaction is the lifeblood of sports. Yet when normal fan behavior is treated as hostile, it sends a chilling message. WNBA players want applause, not accountability. Compare this to the NBA, where superstars endure entire arenas chanting insults, but respond by locking in and silencing critics with their play. That's what fans expect from professionals, and it's why NBA stars earn respect even from rivals. Then there's the issue of image. The WNBA has worked tirelessly to grow its audience, but stories like this undermine those efforts. Instead of headlines celebrating playoff intensity, the narrative became player loses composure over basic heckling. For casual viewers, the very people the league is trying to win over this confirms the stereotype that the WNBA is more about drama than basketball. Even worse, it overshadowed strong performances from other players who actually delivered in crunch. The silence from league leadership also spoke volumes. When accusations of racism started spreading online, there was no swift clarification, no defense of fans who had been wronged. That vacuum allowed the narrative to spiral out of control, leaving two innocent people dangling while Gray's meltdown became the central storyline. If the WNBA wants to build credibility, it must act decisively in these moments. Protecting players at the expense of fans is not a sustainable path forward. This fiasco also exposed the tension between activist culture and traditional sports culture within the league. Many longtime supporters argue that too much emphasis is placed on politics and identity, while not enough focus is placed on building a strong competitive product. Incidents like this only fuel that divide, reinforcing the idea that criticism is deflected with buzzwords instead of being met with accountability. Ultimately, what this reveals is a league at a crossroads. The WNBA has the talent, the athletes, and the opportunity to grow like never before, especially with new stars drawing record crowds. But growth requires resilience, not fragility. It requires players who can embrace criticism, not crumble under it. Until that shift happens, the league will continue to trip over its own image problems, leaving fans the very foundation of its future, questioning why they should invest their time, money, and loyalty. And that's the lingering question left in the wake of Allisha Gray's tantrum. Is the WNBA ready to grow up? Or will it keep letting moments like this define it? The Allisha Gray incident began as a heated playoff moment, but quickly spiraled into a full-blown controversy that revealed far more than anyone expected. What started with a routine heckle ended with fans unfairly ejected, social media mobs spreading false accusations, and a player's thin skin on display for the world to see. In the end, eyewitness accounts and security's apology exposed the truth. The fans were innocent, and Gray's tantrum created a mess that could have ruined reputations. More importantly, the saga highlighted a bigger issue for the WNBA. If players can't handle the natural tension of competitive sports, and if the league continues to shield them at the expense of fans, its credibility will suffer. True growth demands accountability, professionalism, and resilience. Until then, every meltdown risks becoming a headline, and every fan will wonder if they're safe from being the next scapegoat.